We shall now continue the debate, and I would like to take this opportunity to start the winding up of the debate by inviting the leader of the opposition to take the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I want to thank you very much for the opportunity and also ask that you protect my back from Honorable Lateef. Otherwise, my submission will be greatly disrupted. Honorable Lateef, I hope I'm protected. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Deputy Minister from the Ministry of Finance for always making herself available in facing Parliament. We all know that facing Parliament is not an easy task. Ministers don't like this house, not because they don't like us as people, but because the house itself is very intimidating. So the minister has been braving it all these years. It shows the confidence one she has in herself, and through the fact that she believes in listening and attending to issues as and when they arise, whether they are criticisms or not. So, Madam Minister, I want to thank you very much for that. Mr. Speaker, again, the Honorable Medlands is not here, but I specifically paid tribute to him when we were discussing the finance bill. I'm sure you joined in that as well. Again, today he's not here, but he was very calm, but as always, very detailed. He cleverly acknowledged a lot of things his students spoke about, but also came up with alternatives. So that is also confirming that this house, as we've said over and over, we are neither perfect nor excellent, but we have people in this house that could be of use to the administration of the state. That is why when we make statements, we should not be looked at as people who are against the executive or other branches of government. We are here to complement the efforts of government. We will never be perfect, Mr. Speaker, but whenever we speak and there is some sense in it, please, 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 those to whom issues are addressed to should be patient enough in looking at those issues and see if there is sense for them to accommodate them in their day-to-day activities. Mr. Speaker, a lot has been said, even though many more MPs want to speak, but the issues, whether it's agriculture or land, the honorable member from Koibondo, I'll be speaking for you, so don't mind them. You will have more opportunity, don't worry. We apologize for cutting the day short. We don't want to blame ourselves, but we have pleaded with the Ministry of Finance to assist us. We know it's at times challenging in putting these documents together, but for next year, let them do their best in ensuring that they come earlier than now, so that we will have a lot of time to play with. So we are kindly pleading with you, honorable members. Thank you. Honorable Lateef, I hope you heard me loud and clear. Mr. Speaker, as I was saying, whether it is education or agriculture, infrastructure or the judiciary, a lot has been said. So our duty as leaders definitely will be expected to bring in one or two new things if we have them, but also for the leader of government business, even before the minister, he is expected to spend a lot of time in clarifying certain issues. That is expected of him. I will not follow that line because that's not my responsibility. My responsibility is to create more chaos. Not for you today, don't worry. Mr. Speaker, on infrastructure, some of us said during the last debate on the presidential address that yes, we've heard a lot from that side, reminding us about expensive roads or other expensive infrastructural projects. But we said it the last time, and I will repeat that again today, probably with recent examples as well, Mr. Speaker. Because we are still asking for the new roads that are under construction. We agree that you want to build roads with cheaper cost. But saying it and doing it might not be the same. So that brings me to the terminal, the new terminal proposed for Lunge. Since we are dealing with the budget, Mr. Speaker, it is important that we discuss this. I had I'm not talking about defense, but so please wait for now. Mr. Speaker, we had the man in charge of infrastructure in the office of the president over the media a few weeks ago, making us believe that the relevant agreement will eventually come to Parliament, even though it will be coming, if at all, after the sword had been turned. But Mr. Speaker, that is not my area of interest. As I said, we are dealing with the budget. Mr. Speaker, the challenge with Lunge has little or nothing to do with a new terminal. The challenge with Lunge is access. Access is the challenge. Is it 3 o'clock? Sorry, sir.
Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I move that we suspend SO2. SO52 for the business house to continue. Thank you.
Any second there?
I say second, Mr. Speaker.
I have 2 voices.
I say second, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, the second is the man from Calabar.
Sure, I seconded the motion, Mr. Speaker. In fact, that's my new role now, Mr. Speaker.
All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. You may continue, Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. So as I was saying, Mr. Speaker, my interest on the Lunge Terminal project has nothing much to do with anything outside that of the budget. The challenge with Lunge is access, as I said earlier. Access. So even if we have the best terminal in the world, access will still be a challenge. And I remember, I know you did not have an opportunity to speak, but please, next time you will. Mr. Speaker, I'm going to consult Honorable Kemokai, and he will be addressing the issue soon. Mr. Speaker, the current terminal we have at the Lunge Airport is underutilized. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the terminal we have currently under operation is underutilized. So what we should do is to look for an airport that will be accessible. More so when the cost, we agree it's not a loan, but it is also not a grant. It is not a grant. So definitely there are going to be financial implications to the state, whether it's going to be by way of duty waivers on materials, severally other compounding financial burdens. That is also a challenge. As at present, we are receiving money from the airport. But with that investment, until we see the agreement, Madam Minister, normally, I am not an accountant, but they have something they refer to as IAS 37. For you, the expert, contingent liability. That itself is a burden. And our constitution is very clear, section 110. Whenever we enter into an agreement that has financial burden, this parliament must give it nod. So before we talk about construction, we should first get clearance from this house. We are spending, we cannot spend very close to $300 million by way of investment. That is it. It's a BOT. That's what I'm saying. It is a BOT, but there is definitely a financial burden. Definitely. There is no free BOT, Mr. Speaker. No free BOT. I don't want to go into the other details. I want to focus on the budget. The implication this is going to get on the budget. The revenue we are getting from the airport now, if that happens, definitely it's going to dwindle on the side of government. But investors, it's build, operate, and then you transfer. We can build. We can build. As a government, we can build. So, Mr. Speaker, it is an area this House should look into because we want to help government to succeed. You were here when all of us supported the finance bill because we are still waiting for the president to sign it. I don't want to venture in saying the Finance Act. But you were here. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, with your permission, I want to refer this House to page 23, paragraph 96, the area on infrastructure. But not to waste up the time of the House, I'll just refer colleagues there, Mr. Speaker. Agriculture. Again, we have gone slightly below what is required of us from the Maputo Protocol. But again, when we discussed the presidential address the last time again, we applauded the current minister, even though he's not on desk, on the effort he has made so far since assuming office. We hope that he will come back and come back very soon. Because he has been doing a good job in the ministry. Even though the players he was working with, they are still in the ministry. But his leadership was confirmed by His Excellency's statement that he was delivering. And members of this House also acknowledged the changes he brought to the ministry when he took over. So we hope that those that are occupying the office for now and are acting in his stead will follow, because agriculture, we cannot joke with agriculture. It is not something we play with. Government is putting in a lot of money, even though, as I said, we are yet again to reach the 10%. But with what is going in, we need to focus greatly on the Ministry of Agriculture. We are talking about the women folks. Over 70% of those engaged in farming are the women. So it is one way we can protect them. Fertilizers have been provided, other farming machinery and input, seedlings have been provided. But if they are not monitored and monitored well, or they do not reach the targeted beneficiaries, it will be money going down the drain. And I'm sure that is not what the ministry is looking forward to, nor the government to a larger extent. We've been told by the Ministry of Agriculture that there has been increase in rice production. Those from SAMU are raising their shoulders high in this chamber as part of the contributors to the increase in rice production. So again, This is probably for the chair on the Committee of Trade. She's just walking in. She's also a strong woman that is supporting women. Value addition. Let us support our farmers to add value to the rice they grow, so that it will be our first call before we go for imported rice, because then we know what we are eating. Mr. Speaker, value addition is necessary. If we spend so much money in agriculture, supporting the farmers, and value is not added, we'll just be wasting resources again. Let us make our farming product attractive to the market. Mr. Speaker, as I said, I will not be going into detail on most of these issues because they've been discussed. On education, again, Mr. Speaker, schools of thought will never be the same. But we still believe that the change from 6334 to the 633 system has affected the results this time around greatly. And I will tell you why, Mr. Speaker, honorable members. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, we were one of the last of the WIRE countries to implement this system of education. I'm sure you remember, during the days of the NPRC. We were one of the last. The 6334 system. But then, after a professional investigation by academics and technocrats who are in the educational sector, government then was advised to add one more year to the school. And that was added, and the result, there were differences. In Ghana, they are still practicing the 6334 system. That is why their results are better than us. They are still practicing it. But we have moved away. So, like the leader of the NGC was alluding. Mr. Speaker, the system that they met in 2018 was 6344. 6 years primary, 3 years junior secondary, and 4 years senior secondary. When I was in school, I spent 7 years in secondary school. 5 years from 1 to 5, and then the 2 years in 6th form. And the difference showed when we went to the university. Some of us were critics to this system. No. It was not just optional. Mr. Speaker, the option then, when it was that when we under our system, there is no way you will go to the university with the GCE O level and go to first year. First you will go to preliminary. You will not go to the first year. That is why some of us were not in support of the change. But then, under the NPRC, they thought it wise, and we accepted it. But when we identified the challenge again, we decided to add 1 year, and the value showed. But now what has happened, Mr. Speaker, this result we saw this year is the first test of the change in system. This is the first, because you prepare at least for 2 years for these public exams. At least 2 years. That is why this is the first test of the new system. And the system has shown its failure so soon. This is the first test. Madam, listen, this is not political. This is, Mr. Speaker, I can sit and I am satisfied. At this point, I can sit. This is not, we cannot politicize education. All of us are in support.
Honorable members, it does not matter whether any of us has been through the crucible of tertiary education or not. What does matter is we agreed yesterday, or was it the day before, when this matter came to the fore, that we should not politicize this issue. We graduated it, we elevated it to the level of a national concern. To the extent that we also agree that at an opportune moment, order. We also agree that at an opportune moment, this House will invite the Minister of Basic Education to come and have a conversation with us on this crucial issue, focusing particularly on the results of WAS this year and the factors that contributed to the abysmal performance of our pupils. I can easily identify with what the leader of opposition is saying. I'm sure IB Kagbo will too. In our day, we had to spend 2 years in Form 6, lower 6 and upper 6. There's only a few exceptions that spent 1 year traversing lower and upper because we felt we were wasting time. True. Some of us spent only a year in those days at the Edward School and went for our A-levels. But times have changed, we know. Times have changed. So let us please pay heed to what the honorable member is saying. This is a crucial national issue. Let us not politicize it. Let's listen attentively to what each and every person is saying on this matter. We will not come to any definitive conclusion on it whilst we await the arrival of the supervising minister. I've already, on your behalf, spoken with the minister myself, and he is more than agreeable to come into the House to have this conversation that we've asked for. So please, continue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I will give you the assurance that I will not, I don't know about others, will not, I repeat, politicize education. Because I believe that the gold we have, even though people are saying today that when we were told that land is better than silver and gold, we have been hoodwinked, but some of us still believe that. Because with education, our resources will be meaningful. The greatest resource we could have as a nation is our human resource. When we have a good human resource, we have all the resources. And Mr. Speaker, we have supported the government's agenda on the free and quality education, and that is why we will not keep quiet until we attain the standard the President is looking forward to. We will not. I will not say much again on education. I will take the cue from you. We will be expecting the minister, and when we were going to get frank conversations, because it is not for me or the minister seated there or yourself. It is for Sierra Leone and the people of Sierra Leone. It is for all of us. Our children are going to school. And for the president to declare education as his prime focus, it shows the importance and premium he lays on education. So what can we do other than to support him? We have to. Mr. Speaker, on education, I'll just wrap up because I don't want to go into the other things I wanted to talk about anymore. On the Lincoln Queen, I don't know how to call it well. I want to join others before me like Honorable Medlands and to plead with the President through the Minister to reconsider, at least to clean up the backlogs, the areas.
This is the well of Parliament. This is the well of Parliament. There are various ways of channeling your appeals without doing what you've just done.
Madam Minister, I'm just pleading with you.
Honorable Leader.
I am pleading with you.
Honorable Leader. No, just a minute. That is a passionate plea you made in connection with my colleague from Kenema. I don't see, if I sit here looking at you, that is a complete undermining the plea that the leader of the opposition wanted to make. We should not do that. We should not politicize education at all fronts. Whether it was wrong yesterday, we cannot do the wrong thing today. What do we do to support the system, to support the children or the students in that particular university? We are here today talking eloquently because we are carefully and well educated. Let us spread that message to everybody, to every Sierra Leonean. I'm sorry for what they did, Mr. Speaker. I hope Honorable Leader of the Opposition don't take that one as a serious matter. They are not able to speak before you wrap up, so they are frustrated. I plead on your behalf. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I accept it.
I attribute it to youthful exuberance. The Honorable Member,
I am sure it is coming from Putlock on this.
No, I'm sorry. I can assure you, you cannot see your back.
No.
I'm in I have a more vantage position to see. The Honorable Member from Karine District, for example, did not join them. But I cannot say the same thing for the Honorable Member from Longate.
And Mr. Speaker, you know, the first thing I asked for before I started to speak was for me to be protected from the back.
You are worse.
My back is exposed, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Member from
my back is not protected. Happy Jew, my back is not protected.
Now I'm beginning to understand
why. My back is not protected.
Now I understand why you specifically.
Because Latif has been threatening me.
No, now I understand why you asked Latif.
Yes.
Whether your back was well protected.
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, again, Madam Minister, I was just pleading with you, with the President, through your good self and your ministry, like my colleagues before. We know that there might be challenges, or there might have been challenges in the past. But for the interest and benefit of the kids, please look into the matter and at least close it once. So you clean up and then we'll move forward. Let us don't allow them in the middle. We just clean it. Please. Yes, please. Happy Jew, you were sleeping and I woke you up and now you are shouting. Mr. Speaker, again, Madam Minister, a lot of conversation has also gone on the wage bill. Some of us believe, even though the minister, by way of an undertone from his side, said the wage bill is natural to increase, that every year there are increases in salaries, percentage increase, so naturally the wage bill will increase. But what the minister did not tell us, we now have new ministries. The Ministry of Development was not there in the past. It was merged with the Ministry of Finance. There was no Ministry of Environment. Social welfare was joined with gender. Now they've been separated. And there have been other new institutions created. But that is not the challenge. There are institutions, MDAs, where we had in the past, where we had, this boy is Mr. Speaker, I need your protection, please.
Okay.
They are reminding me about the forest guards, and they spoke about it already. They have spoken already on it. Mr. Speaker, I need your protection, please. So, Madam Minister, the other issue here is we hope that the Ministry of Finance...
Let me help you.
Yes, sir.
I have received communication from certain quarters that I will be consulted when the time comes for the allocation of symbols.
That must be for C4C.
That's for
C4C or NGC.
And I'll be consulted as an impartial, neutral figure to give testament to your behavior and your performance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Madam Minister, I was talking on the wage bill. I don't want to repeat what I've mentioned already, the new institutions, etc. I accept what the minister has said, that partly, but that is just partly, Madam Minister. It cannot be holistic. There are certain institutions, I can call them now, but I don't need to. But the Ministry of Finance, you must be on top in monitoring employment in all of these MDAs. Because you are in charge of the post. There are institutions when by 2018 they had 200 employees, now they have over 500 or 600. Were they underemployed in the institution, or are they creating jobs for the boys and girls? Because those things will cause a burden on the budget. And government also needs money for infrastructural development. We were used in the last 10 years to fund road construction partly with local funds. But that is not happening now because you are challenged. The post is strained. There is a strain on the post. So make sure you do audits on these institutions to ensure that the recruitments they are undertaking are not just the numbers they want, but they are relevant and needed by the institutions. It's very, very important. The leader of the C4C talked on the mining industry, so I will not say more, but I want to agree with him. All he said, I agree with on record, without going beyond. No, but you know he's your coach, co-leader, so. Mr. Speaker, we've been encouraged by the leader of government business for the committees that will be dealing with the sub-appropriation committees to do a thorough job. The leader of government business has had, honorable members, the leader of government business has encouraged the chairman of the Committee on Finance to ensure that whoever is going to chair those committees, that chairman and the members must make sure they do a thorough job. Otherwise, we will not blame the ministry, we will blame ourselves. And we don't want to blame the ministry for something that we should be doing. So, Mr. Chairman, our eyes are on you and your team. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, again, revenue mobilization. Revenue mobilization. A lot has been said on revenue mobilization. We assure you that we will do our part in ensuring that the required revenue is being mobilized. But going back to the decentralization the leader of the C4C and others spoke about, I think it was the chairman, these councils, the councils, they must enjoy the benefits of their act. If they cannot raise revenue, they cannot mobilize revenue, then government will just be taking from the central fund and sending it to them, when they have the capacity to raise revenue within. It is local revenue, the local revenue mobilization that should be an incentive for government to continue supporting some of these councils. The councils were not created to serve as a burden to central government. There should be a cushion. But it seems as if, well, I don't know whether it is because of the way the executive has been dealing with local councils since 2004, because I'm not a local government expert, but definitely we need to give room and space to councils to make sure that they raise revenue to the best extent they could without causing hardship. I still remember in this year, there has been a lot of tofro between the Freetown City Council and the Ministry of Local Government. I am sure when it is good, they should collaborate and work together. We don't like to pay tax. No citizen like to pay tax. We're not going to hide that. But we have to pay taxes. This taxation is not something palatable. We want to have a better city. I still remember the days of Usu Sano when he was mayor of Bo. He did a fantastic job because he had space. And up to date, I always mention his name whenever I talk about local governance administration. He did very well in Bo, and I'm sure Emerson knows that. He brought in a lot of innovation, and those innovative ideas he brought forward were supported, and Bo by then was the envy until other cities and started copying what he was doing. So again, when we have good ideas, let us bring them on board. They might not be 100%. Let us take what is good and leave the rest. But we must make sure that we give space to these councils to mobilize revenue. Otherwise, we will be causing more burden on central government. We want to support the budget. Somebody spoke on the two commercial banks. The NGC leader spoke about this morning, so I will not go there. But the child was not just born today, the child was born yesterday. That is all I'll say. The COI came out with it. Mamadou Kagbo had to answer questions on that because NASIT and others gave a bailout and it was official. So the banks are now making profit and they are paying back.
Tell about Zenith Bank.
No, not Zenith. Sierra Commercial Bank and the Rokel Commercial Bank. Not your bank where I keep some money in your constituency. Mr. Speaker, I have some money in his bank. So make sure my money is safe. Anyway, it's not up to your salary, so if it is not, you give me back. Yes. Mr. Speaker, we were reminded, Madam Minister, on your target, that is 9.2 trillion. It is huge, but it is achievable. But maybe when you are responding, you will also tell us. So the public will not think that if you do not meet your target of 9.2 trillion, then they are expecting you to spend something in addition to the 9.2 trillion next year. Because this year, you had a target. You had a target on your last year's budget for this year. And I'm sure what we had, it was confirmed that they were unable to meet their target. Well, not their fault. It's because of COVID. So these things should come out. Money not get lawyer. So again, at least the public should know Mr. Tasima. You should assist the ministry as director of budget. We need to hear your voice. Tasima. Because you know, the Honorable Machinyuma always enjoys quoting popular reggae musicians. because he always believes in it. He who feels it knows it. He believes in that. That is why I want to remind those in charge of our budget that we should not do it the Bujubantin way. Who once said that the politicians will always tell you that the economy is getting better, but man still suffer. That is Bujubantin. So we should not tell the people that the economy is getting better when bread and butter is not on the table. It must be translated to bread and butter.
Now, who's the level you to know?
Mr. Speaker, the budget definitely is a good one on paper, and we will support the ministry to make it a good one in reality. But we have to follow up. Otherwise, if we do not have the space to follow up, we have a chairman in charge of the Committee on Finance. Don't shut your doors on him, because when we are challenged, we will ask him to explain here. He will not give us any excuse. We will be monitoring the implementation of this budget. And the chairman must be on top. So Tasima, when you see the chairman in your office, he's not going there to ask you for anything personal. But it is because this house will be expecting him to follow the implementation of this budget. Because when we are challenged, we face him. As I said, there are many things in this document, but they've been talked on. No, I don't want to hear the undertone. You know he's undertone, it's too much. But a lot of things have been discussed, and I'm sure you will be responding to the best of your ability when the time comes up. There are many things I could talk on, but I don't like repeating others. If you say that one more time. So, Mr. Speaker, again, before I sit, I want to commend the minister and again apologize to the MPs who have not been able to make their submissions, but assure them that the budget is an annual document. There are other bills will come in, agreements will come from not just the appropriation. During the course of 2021, bills will come, agreements will come, different documents will come to this house. The president will be delivering his address next year. We will tie these documents to his address. So don't feel defeated. And you are not. There is always time for you to talk.
And the debates will be televised. Don't leave that.
We have agreed on that. And again, Mr. Speaker, we need also to make it very clear that the Speaker was not in support of the 3 days since the inception. He was never in support. But again, no. He had no choice then but to endorse. That is why we have pleaded with the Ministry of Finance. Latif is charged. That is why we have pleaded with the Ministry of Finance. Yeah, we are pleading again today. No, Kamokai, you know when I say something, it happens. Mr. Speaker, that is why myself and the leader of government business, we have pleaded with the Ministry of Finance to do their best in ensuring that next year, God willing, the budget comes to this house earlier than they did, so that we have enough time to play with. Normally, this house, whenever we're going to December, it is always like this. So by extension, the leader of government business, you tell your ministers to be bringing their documents earlier. Because next time, we will not interfere with the budget when debate is going on. Thank you very much, sir. And on that note, Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
I thank the Honorable Leader of the Opposition for his contribution to the debate, and more especially for avoiding repeating what previous speakers had said before him. Now is the turn of the leader of government business, and he has assured me he's going to be very brief this time.
Mr. Speaker, well, I don't know if I can assure you I'm going to be brief. I will try to do so that I can go and do other business. Thank you very much, leader of the opposition, for giving us your own side of the budget story and bringing out issues I think are very pertinent to the progress of Sierra Leone. Madam Minister, thank you for coming. Thank you for being with us since this morning, since we started on Monday. Again, we moved the motion to shorten the debate using the provisions to the standing orders. I think we disadvantage our colleagues. I joined the leader of the opposition to apologize. Next time, Honorable Latif, it will be as long as you like it. We'll give you 1 hour to talk. And budget debate is a process. There are going to be agreement, another agreement to come to support the budget funding, etc., etc. But let me now start looking at the budget proper. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, you can only talk about revenue mobilization, talking about a broad budget, what the honorable leader said, by mobilizing domestic revenue. So I support you on the revenue mobilization from the local councils, that we need to see how best we can cooperate. And in that light, in 2017, you see a steady increase in the revenue mobilization of GDP. In 2017, it was 12.3% of GDP. And 2018, it was 13.7% of GDP. And 2019, 14.8% of GDP. It's very clear. But Mr. Speaker, honorable members, as I said, we need to face the present reality. What is the present reality? This budget has gone through it. They have elucidated on it by talking about the COVID, the pandemic. So in this strategy paper, we have to be very honest and realistic. They said the projection they made, if there's going to be this pandemic for some time, the domestic revenue will plunge down to 13.0% of GDP. That's a big crisis for us. If we started increasing our domestic revenue, and projection is going towards 20% of GDP in 2023, and just around the corner, we see a U-turn, getting down to 2.0%. It's a point of concern, Madam Minister. It's a reality because that is happening all over the world. That's because of the pandemic. That's a realistic statement. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, when they started, they gave us a commitment. They gave us 159 commitments in the 2019 budget. Yes, he gave us. And what happened in that commitment? They are able to do 112. It is in page 1. Check page 1. It's there. Just go to the bottom page. 159. Thank you. 159. And they achieved 112. And that's a very good one. That's a very good commitment because what you do, you look at your passing mark. Say, if I've given commitment to this honorable house because you read the budget here, and you have now reported that we only did 112% of 112 of that commitment. I say kudos to you. And in the same 2019, there was a supplementary budget. 2020 was a supplementary budget. And you said you made another commitment of 28 commitments you made. Thank you very much. He read so much that he was not able to speak. So he gave me the support from my back. Mr. Speaker, the reason why I'm bringing now this, I want to be very honest with the budget. As I progress in trying to give out the analysis of the budget, you will see why I'm bringing all these indicators. As Honorable Leader said, I have to explain so people can understand. I have said here is not a platform, you come and just give a document. I will just say that we concord. We have to look at it, irrespective of the eye. I respect the view of my colleagues from either side of the house. It was giving us 28 commitments was given to us. And what happened, we had 25 of that was achieved. What they did not achieve all, but some of them are in the progress to achieve with the debt given to us. That's why it spells out in page 1. That's 112 yet to be achieved. Some achieved, 28, 25 yet to be achieved with a record time. All of them, you gave record time for them. Thank you very much. That is to say, if you check the statistics for the 2020 supplementary budget, it's 89% achieved. That's what in the budget. But that is good, Mr. Speaker. That is really good. That shows that we have some amount of fiscal decency. There is fiscal decency, but what you said are achievable at certain levels. Now, let us have a look at the pandemic. Let us take a look at the pandemic as Sierra Leoneans, the COVID-19. When we heard about the pandemic, any responsible administration will bring in measures to mitigate the pandemic, not to reverse development and other human capital things that we are put in place for the good of the nation. So I can see, I said it today when the COVID report came, the spokesman came to present the development so far. I said thanks to all of the members in the House that we are able to give the latitude to His Excellency the President so that we can get what we call the state of emergency to cooperate. So what you did for us to mitigate some of these problems we have, you went for a quick action, what we call you started with what we call the quick action economic response programs. That is very key. That's one helps us a lot. As I move along, you see the progress, why they brought in the QUIPA. That's how they call it. But Mr. Speaker, honorable members, if you go to page 2, I will not intend to read all of them, but just for the edification of the public, I refer to them as I move along. The Quick Action Economic Recovery Program, page 2, go to under paragraph 4, I read bullet 3. Government has designed the National Microfinance Program, which they call MUNAFA, and nationwide consultations with relevant stakeholders to have been completed. Requests for expressions of interest to financial services providers have been issued, and the necessary administrative arrangements are being put in place. We hope to start providing credit for this fund in 2021. The fourth bullet, in addition, government provided safety net support to 2,368 workers in the tourism and hospitality industry, where each worker received 1,800,000. You can look at them over and over. You have a lot of bullets point that under the quick action. Yes, they are all from the recovery programs. But the other one that's very important in page 5, bullet 5, page 3, bullet 5, under the paragraph 5, provided life insurance policy for 11,039 healthcare workers engaged in the fight against COVID-19. Mr. Speaker, I don't want to bore you with all of them. There is a tax relaxation under NRA in terms of fair, rise. I will read that deliberately. The National Revenue Authority, NRA, defer taxes due for the importation of essential commodities, especially for rice, fuel, and other basic foodstuffs. As at the end of August 2020, an amount of 86.9 billion has been deferred. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, it is good for us to give recommendations and to say thanks to you for doing that. It has to do with the ordinary men and women. It has to do with the frontline workers. It has to do with the rapid response program. How do we mitigate so that our gains in the previous years cannot be watered down because of COVID-19? That's what you say, the quick response program. It's very good. But let us look at the global trend. Let us have a look at the global trend, which is in page 11. We expect the global trend to contract, but the projection they did, which the document, go to page 4, the global trend. Realize that 4.4% projected will be contracted of the GDP. That is the effect. That is the effect we are talking about. But in the sub-Saharan Africa, which we need to, that's what we are going to compare our own economy to the sub-Saharan Africa. Why do we need to do that? Because what we have done, we are going to see if there's going to be an upward trend in line with the PPAD or a downward trend in line with the PPAD. When we talk about the macroeconomic and budgetary performance, we'll come to that very soon. But for now, we are looking at how do we compare the sub-region. In the sub-region, it's very interesting. They projected to contract the GDP to contract by 3.0%. But what has happened? It's very interesting that they further went. If you go further in paragraph 11 of page 4, they said in the recovery there will be a modest change, contraction to increment to 3.1%. But let us hold those ones constant for the sake of argument. But now let us go back, let us go now forward our argument under the macroeconomic and budgetary performance 2020. We want to see what you are giving us in the aspects of the recovery program, in the quick action program, if we have any effects of what you have done. That's an assessment. Page 14, the macro and budgetary performance in 2020. What you did, we projected to have a contraction, a GDP to be contracted at the rate of 3.1%. That's what the projection you made. A very interesting analysis you did. But when you introduced this PPAD to mitigate some of these actions, so in the process of manufacturing industry, in the process of construction and agriculture, you brought all of these things so that we cannot be affected much by this impact of the COVID-19. So it was viewed that this will have impact on the macro aspect of the economy. And if you go down, you realize that we achieved something. So before, when you did the analysis, when you went back doing the analysis as Speaker, they were able to see that the contraction rate of GDP reduced to 2.8%. So if you go to page 14, paragraph 14, page 5, you will see it is very clear. Based on preliminary data available for the first half of 2020, the economy is now projected to contract by 2.8% instead of 3.1%. So in fact, if you compare that one to the sub-Sahara, under the global trend now, to the sub-Sahara, it means we are better off because that one is 3.0%. And now we're talking about contraction at 2.8% of GDP. So what you introduced, it made some sense and brought in some sanity within the economy. So the first assessment for the PPAD makes sense to us. Well, let us go and examine the inflation rate. The inflation rate is still at double digits. We are still fighting, Mr. Speaker, honorable members. Why do we need to have the inflation rate at single digits? On benchmarks, you need to have single digit inflation rate. But we are faced with a situation where we have little but no alternative to talk about the reality. But there was a downward trend in the inflation rate. There was a downward trend in the inflation rate. We moved from April 2020, it moved from 15.7% of GDP to September to 12.6%. That's what is stated in India. If you go to page 5, paragraph 15. But why? Why the downward trend? Why the downward trend in the inflation rate? That's the question we ask. It's not because of margin. Somebody, I cannot remember, but one member of parliament raised that one. I think Honorable said he raised it up. But why? Why do we have the downward trend in the inflation rate? But we are still at double digits. What happened? Credit facilities were rolled out by Bank of Sierra Leone. But the question I asked me if they monitored properly. But the intention was to make sure that there is availability and affordability of essential commodities in the market. That is what we are looking. That is the important aspect of it. But did you monitor, Madam Minister? Because if you go to the market, we have to do some realistic checks. If somebody said over there, you have to check the economic stability vis-a-vis the government support, what the price system in the market. If you don't do that, it will not affect on the people. There is no effect. So we always look at the effect. The economy should, you know, honorable leader said, it's good. It's a good budget, but the effect on the people, what matters? Because we campaign on the platform the good of the ordinary man. So I will explain all of this theory, talking about downward trend of the inflation, comparing from this year to this year. But you have to ensure that what the money was given out in terms of to facilitate the economy was usually working. So in the Finance Act, there is a provision. They talk about price control system. That is clear. Our business here is to bring out all the facts. But the business again is to allow you ministry, because we have got impediment where our chairman found it very difficult to access the ministry at times and to even try to do this oversight function. That is realistic. That is realistic. So it's good. But there are challenges. I said we don't want to take the budget as if it's hook, line, and sinker. We have challenges. We have challenges. Go to paragraph 16 under the macroeconomic of the budgetary performance. We had the import rate, the export rate. Let me take the export rate. The export rate, there was a big challenge with the export rate. If you check the export rate, you realize that in the same 2019, half of 2019, the import rate fell drastically, and the same thing happened in 2020. So why would we have the import rate fail and we're at the same level? It's because the export rate fell drastically because we are not exporting our precious minerals. Yeah, that is what is happening. The iron ore, the diamonds, the gold. We are not doing exportation. So in the same 2000, the scenario is the same. In 2019, the half of 2019 and half of 2020, the scenario is the same. So that if you come to the export is the same. But in this one, in 2019, the export rate is far better than 2020. The 2020 is far worse. That's what we call fiscal imbalance. That's the fiscal imbalance. We cannot accommodate what we are. That's the challenge. That's the big challenge. It's clear. I don't want to bore members with the reading. Yeah, but you realize that when you come, you realize that there is a complete drop for the import rate in 2020 compared to 2019, and for the export rate is the same at the same level. So we need to change the narrative. Yeah, but there's another challenge again. Page 11. We call it trade deficit. Trade deficit. The trade deficit widening. Both the latter and the former are the same. 2019 and 2020. Both of them, they are the same. The gap widening. So if you're talking about trade deficit, which is secret to the economy, we should do something. But let me tell you the projection you made, which I read. In the same paragraph 17, go to the second line. You said, despite this, and this is the first time, normally we see the trend in 6 months, in 2 months, 3 months, but this one is rapid. Despite this, gross international reserve, that is the credible side of it. Gross international reserves increased to nearly 6 months of import as at end September 2020. This is due to the disbursement of budgetary and balance of payment support by the IMF. I want to catch that one. It's not because of anything. It's actually credibility, the increment, because of the budget support from IMF. Yeah? And it's not only IMF, the World Bank, the Africa Development Bank, the ADB. I think the agreement will pass in this very house. Those supports will pass in this very house. And the official exchange rate of the loan to the US dollar remained relatively stable. Really, that language, I want to be very frank. I don't know if you respond to that. What do you mean by relatively stable? Because see, we saw a sharp increase from 9 something to 1 million, and a point of reversal. So I want to know, are we at the same 1 million? Are we talking about 1 million? Are we talking about 1 million and 10 to $1, 1,010 to $1? At $100 is 1 million and some millions. So we need to really check the official rate. Thank you. So we can check that one when we are talking about the Mr. Speaker, honorable members, let us talk about the external mobilization. which is very key. It's what we call donors' confidence. Donor confidence. If you check, if you do the mathematics around that, you go to the last line, go to the middle line, where we talk about the total 1, 2, 3, 4. Go to line 4. Total resources mobilized from international financial institutions, IFIs, increased from, take note, $46.3 million in 2018 to $438.4 million in 2019 and $380.7 million between January and February and October 2020. Let us take out the January to October. Thank you. A progressive achievement to the donors. That is external mobilization. Let me come. Don't forget about the 2020. You don't calculate that one. If you take the $438 million and divide it with the $46 million, you know the donor credibility. What that means is nearly 9.46, nearly 10 folds what we have got compared to 2018. So it's a credible aspect of what you are doing, irrespective of the challenges. So donors' confidence is real. But how do we do this? The benchmark that you are going to do. Fiscal discipline. How you discharge the policies in line with what you are doing. External source mobilization is very key. I mentioned the Africa Development Bank, I mentioned the European Union, I mentioned the IMF. It's very key. So we have to talk about that. But let me come to a very important one. You see, if we want to have some comparative analysis, we are now giving projections for 2020. It's good for us to make projections for 2020. But what we need to do is to look at the domestic revenue mobilization and also be realistic, because you did what you call the projection for revenue mobilization in this early 2020 to ensure that is pre-COVID. That is pre-COVID. When you did the projection, it was 4.7%. Domestic, it was 4.7% pre-COVID. But let me come now to when you revise the domestic revenue mobilization. Yeah. Because we put in place so many factors. What happened? When you revise the COVID, the budget, the domestic revenue mobilization, because we are not talking about budgetary performance in 2020. You projected, when you did a revise, you got from January to September 2020, which amounted to 4.1 trillion. 4.1 trillion. $4.1 trillion. That is domestic mobilization. What you mobilize from January to September 2020. That's what you mobilize in terms of domestic revenue. That is 9.9% of GDP. Check that one. 9.9% of GDP. So you collected 4.1 trillion, 9.1% of GDP. Good. So when you revised the post-COVID, we look at the COVID scenario, looking at the quicker, all of what you did, realize that there is some increment. Now you projected 4 trillion after revision, 4 trillion. So the increment you made in revenue collection was 59 billion. 59 billion. So thank you very much. Why am I doing the relative comparison? It's because pre-COVID we are at low. There was a revenue deficit. But because of the pandemic, he did a revised program from January to September at 4.0 trillion. But when you did the collection, you got 4.1, and that takes you to 9.9% of GDP. So you did well. So if you keep on the trend, irrespective of the COVID, with the keeper, with other things you have done, we can make more and maintain the fiscal discipline. More revenue will be added, and I will go in line with the leader of the opposition that we can be able to sponsor our own programs. There are government priority programs that we carry. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, But down the domestic revenue projection, you said the last paragraph. You said domestic revenue is projected to reach 5.37 trillion for the year as a whole. When, if you do the mathematics, I don't know if I got it properly, but it's something like between 13 to 14% of GDP. That is paragraph 23, the last line, page 6. I don't know if I did the mathematics correctly, but I think it's between 13 to 14% of GDP. If you look at all the factors that we carry. Exactly, marginal progression. But let me come with this one. Let us look at the middle term, the budget outlook, the recovery process. He said it's very key to talk about recovery process. I like to talk about recovery because we don't want you to come and say we base all of our, because I want to ascertain the veracity of the budget in terms of COVID-19 impact. So when you are pushed up to talking about the budget outlook, we're looking about the recovery process. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, it will be good for us to look at the middle term outlook of the budget. Page 7, paragraph 28. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I will tend to read this one deliberately and verbally. Go to the line 5. The economy is projected to recover. That is why, because we don't want you, when we are doing our oversight or bringing for questioning, you will say, we are talking about the recovery, there is this and that. They are giving us an outlook, a very good side, a very good. So we would like to know about the recovery process. The economy is projected to recover by 3.3% in 2021 and grow further by an average of 3.9% during the period 2022 to 2023. Take note, madam. We are going to check this one. The economy, you don't force people to say, I'm feeling better. You can see the change turn around on the face of the people. Right on their faces. You see the turnaround. It's a physical thing. It's something that you can see. And if of acceptable variables, is that the language? If all things be equal. Is that the variables? Is that the... I'm a science student. I'm not an economist. The recovery will be driven by an increase in agricultural activities. Take note. Resumption of iron ore mining, expansion in non-iron ore mining activities, and recovery of the manufacturing, construction, and tourism sector. So you see, I made reference to the tourism sector where you give enough money to maintain the industry. So this part of the recovery process. But I mentioned about the fiscal imbalance when I was talking about the macroeconomic performance of the budget. I mentioned talking about the export, the import. So in the recovery process, you have mentioned something. So let me elucidate on that one. I read paragraph 32. Exports are projected to recover strongly. That's a strong word. Recover strongly in 2021, owing to the resumption of iron ore mining supported by the recovery of the Chinese economy. Imports are expected to grow at an average of 5.5% in the medium term. The increase in exports, FDI, inflows and disbursements of grants are expected to increase the foreign exchange reserves and stabilize the exchange rate. So, Madam Minister, these are key things. I just put in my advice, and it's very key. These are commitments that you have to live up to. These are commitments. Don't assume the COVID is under control. Don't assume the COVID is under control. If you put the COVID example, all things remain constant with what we have with the fiscal discipline, all things put together, we are able to achieve these ones. And you also make use of your variables around you, the positive indicators, to change this story around. So you are giving us the recovery process, which is very key, because in the budget you have explained a whole lot of COVID, but you have profiled something to cushion in so that you can suppress the impact of the COVID-19. That one is a very good one. Yeah. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I I want to talk about the wage bill. I just want to, you see, we have to be honest. We need sanity in wages and salaries. We need conformity. We need to have oneness. We need to see how do we push. We need to have an understanding that we have succeeded in putting the way, because we had the last time, Mr. Speaker, in Committee Room 1, they presented how to have uniformity in the wage bill, Madam Minister. But this one, why I'm mentioning it, is in page 30, paragraph 133. The reason why I'm bringing up this one is on two fronts. I want us to look at the frontline workers. We have neglected them in all shapes and forms. To such an extent, I come. One, in the TACOS, let me start with the military personnel. I read that paragraph deliberately. You have done well. But you realize that even a civil servant, the DOs, the magistrates are going to the up provinces. They talk about even some of the nurses as we are in our villages, in our constituencies. The enumeration compared to those in the urban center, they are not the same. They are not. We need to take care of them. We need to provide the necessary resources. Give it to them. It's good for us to do that. Motivation, we need that one. It's very necessary. And once you have started, what you have started is about TACOS, the terms and conditions of service personnel. Let me read the TACOS. It's very clear. Let me read the TACOS. Page 30. Page 30. Let me read the third line. Therefore, as part of government's commitment to improving on living conditions of our service personnel, the salaries of all military personnel will be increased by 25% yearly over a 3-year period effective from April 2021. But this TACOS is very key. But let me tell you what we have to do. In the rank of the military and the police and the prison officers, they are ranked. You have the commander, you have the deputy IG. I can tell you. Let me tell you now that the deputy IG earns more money than the deputy you have, the commander you have in the rank of the military. Check the salary grade. Fine. That is something we have to address. That is a big security risk. All of them, they are doing their own sacrifice in one way or the other. The police, the military, the prison personnel, the fire force. But if we want to satisfy them, we have given 25-year period. So the question I will put to you, what is the line in conformity to have a uniform wage bill because of their different rank at the different institutions? So support. So that's what we do. The TACOS is very key, so we need to do all of those things. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, what is key here, I wrap in a few minutes. We have refused to talk about something that is very important to us. Somebody mentioned it in passing. The social protection is fundamental. We are representing the people. We should be talking about social protection all the time. But these people are voting for us. The people with disability. You know, what is affecting us now is societal problems. The intake of drugs. Even the results we are talking about. Today, we had COVID-19. The students are at home. The people, they are at home. They are under the control of their parents. The question we ask ourselves, we are then getting tuition. Where the parents are paying attention to the students. Some of them are involved in taking drugs. What have we done? So what you have done in this budget is to take care of the social aspect, social protection. Or what you call early pregnancy, disability issues, all of this. So in this budget, you have mentioned it. So I will read a specific paragraph. Go to paragraph 150. I will skip the NACSA issue. I will go down to the area where somebody mentioned that only 1 billion, I don't know if it's from the lady from, I don't know if the constituency. Yeah. But she was talking about, don't forget about the figures. Don't forget about the figures. Because, you know, you can have the figure, you look at the appropriation, you can see 1 billion. But when you come to the text of the budget, you will see there is a shoot in the expenditure or allocated money. So let me just read for you. Thank you. Other factors. So social protection, 152. In addition, government is allocated to. In addition, that is the phrase. Government is allocated to the Ministry of Social Welfare 15.2 billion, of which support to social protection programs, 4.8 billion support to pilgrims. I will hold out one, pilgrims. But Minister, we need to spread this one out. Make it a political. To ensure that this is a taxpayers' money. Yeah, make it apolitical. I'm very careful to yourself, man. Make it apolitical. So that because it's taxpayers' money and it is enshrined in his budget, the spirit of it is to really examine the social aspects of what we are doing. Which we MPs, every day you say, but this is happening to all. This is happening to all. So if we are distributing scholarships, let us try and reach out to people in different constituencies, different areas. And further, 5.4 billion, Ministry of Labour and Social Security. And another 4.9 billion, and an amount 1.5 billion is allocated to devolve social welfare services. So you heard the honourable members talking about protection officers. Protection officers. You know, there's too much abuse of drugs in our country. We don't need to shy from that. It's a reality. Suppression, poverty, control. We don't have control over our children, our kids anymore. People are escalating in favor of poverty. There is a complete distinction between discipline and poverty. You can be poor but you are disciplined. For some people, SO2, I don't get money, let go drive, the king. Social abuse. So social protection. We should allocate funds for this, what you have done. It's good. This is a very good move. I applaud you for that. Kudos to your ministry. But let us ensure it is allocated figures. Can we make it actual? Can we make it actual? Depending on the point, there you are. But do we have more social workers? Can we have more social workers? Are we in line in working with the spirit of the budget, the spirit of the allocated funds given to us? Are we moving that line? So if you even go to COVID-19, this is a very good one for you, Madam Minister, and your ministry. If you go to 150, it's specifically going for COVID-19. So we move on to other. That is one of the clusters we have under the human development. That's very, very key. That's under cluster 1 of the human development index. Cluster 2. This is also important for all of us. It's talking about the good governance and accountability, the level of corruption, allocated money to audit service, to the judiciary, to parliament. Parliament, we are giving under this governance 2.1 billion. It's in the budget here for good governance. Parliament, we pass laws. People are accused of corruption. When we say we want money for us to change our conditions of service, they will go over the radio, lambast us throughout the day for a cent, for a dime. But here, you have recognized us. And not only us, he has spelled out all of the structures. Let us believe in strong institutions to support our good governance. The rule of law, accountability, the audit service, the anti-corruption commission, the parliament, the legislative arm we are talking about. If you don't support us, you are giving us a whole lot of budget description. That one is in page 174. Paragraph 174, page 36. 174. Very soon I will end. 174. But I was expecting my honorable lady of the house, the women's president, our mama of the house. I was expecting our women colleagues to talk about the allocation we are giving. No, the one spoke over there, 1, 2, 3. No, let me come. 1, 2, 3, I was expecting to make allocation for women and children. It's provided in the budget. It's under cluster 4. It's under cluster 5, sorry. It's under cluster 5. I don't want to elucidate on that much. But That was a very good one. I want to say thanks to you. Mama, you are not able to talk to me, but on your behalf, I will speak on your behalf. Thank you very much for considering the women. It's a very key, a very important aspect. So when we are talking about women, I was hoping that they give the ministry some praise. They don't praise the ministry. That, oh, you have allocated funds for women and children. It's clear there. So you go to page 175, paragraph 175, 176, cluster 5 of the... But for the records, of course, somebody mentioned about the maternal death rate. For every 1,000 live births, before this time we had serious issues. But 32%, we are now gone some level. 32% that one has been solved. Honorable Chairman of the committee made mention about that. Yeah, because the indicators, thank you very much for giving us those indicators. So those ones were good and that was also clear. But Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I want to make some corrections. I have tremendous respect for ladies, especially when they hold position of trust. I always want to observe that one and respect that environment. But for the record, so that the answer can accommodate me, I just want to talk about the fee subsidies that was given Kono fee subsidies. Let me read the caption. Summary of tuition payment by level for the term 2021 academic year to Kwedu and New Sembeon City, Kono District Councils, paid on 23rd October 2020. For school level, pre-primary, total number of schools 31, total enrollment 5,674, amount paid per people 10,000 units, amount paid so far for that level 56,740,000 units. In the primary level, amount of schools is 363, total enrollment 84,602, amount paid per pupil is 10,000 units. Total money is 846,020,000 units. JSS 95, number of schools, total enrollment 32,280, amount paid per pupil 50,000, 1,740,000,000 units. SS 34, number of schools, total number of schools 34, total enrollment 8,880, amount paid per pupil 60,000 units, 1,132,800,000 units. Total amount paid so far 3,749,560,000 units. So just for the record, I will submit that one to the clerk's office to say that we have paid money for the subsidy. Our colleague on the other side from Kono spoke about. She was passionate about it. Perhaps they did not give her the. Sometimes they can't. Yeah, they did not give her the document. They don't inform her. What our constituent normally does is to give us the problem, but don't give us the solution. When they make the complaint, when they get the money, they will not come and report. That honorable member SO2, that thing they don't pay you. They will not come, but they come with problems. They will not come and report that the problem has been solved. So, Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I want to thank you all. As my honorable leader from the opposition said, I like using these words, especially when I'm talking about budget. Who feels it knows it. There is no way you are going to talk for somebody that is having the pain within and is feeling the pain. We are representing people, no matter irrespective of the political divide. You go to your people, they don't give you colors. What they give you, how do you solve their problems? And the problem is the same. It's homogeneous. SO2, if you pull a door for person APC, if you pull a door for person na SLPP, if you bury in person NGC, if you bury one in constituent na C4C. That is our job description, Mr. Speaker. That is our job description. So it's clear that we are forced to do things that beyond our control. So those who feel it, it's just hypothetical things. So, Mr. Speaker, honorable members, we have to get good policies. Good policy, Madam Minister. Cum fiscal discipline. Cum implementation. I hold that word from the leader of the opposition. Implementation. All of these things, we have oversight, but I said it, you have to give them the latitude how to operate. We don't want to see where we have some confrontation between our oversight committee with that of the Minister of Finance and their associates. So if you do that one for us, we campaign on programs to ensure that there is good for all of us. This power pass along with better will come from these aggregates of things I have put before you. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, the budget can be only proper if proper implementation is adhered to. The budget can only be proper if proper implementations are adhered to. I want to say thanks to you for being with us, for since you started. And not only today, you have been with us throughout, serving the nation. That is what you are doing. You are committed to your job. May Lord bless you. So Tassima Jah, the man I've known for over 20 years from Frabi College. Now we went to the better college, you know, together the honorable of the opposition. Frabi College, well, they are associated to, we are more senior for those colleges. So I want to say thanks to you for your effort for putting all of this together, the Director of Budget, the only National Director of Budget. Mr. Speaker, I want to say thanks to you for your time. I know to sit there for a very long time. We have the leverage to go out and come in. But when you want to go out, you only stand the house down. Everybody will be on the eyes. Who's Mr. Speaker? They go SO2. So I want to thank you for your patience listening to us with all of this analysis. But I want to say thanks to my colleagues, those who are not able to speak. I think we have done that on your behalf. I again apologize because we are not giving you the platform for you to speak because we suspended the provision in the standing orders, which you think we have interfered with your democratic right in the House and your representation for your people. We apologize, and with that one, we'll stop that one henceforth. I want to say thanks to the members of the 4th Estate. Though we see sometimes you are not giving professional report, but you need to give balanced reports. We are monitoring you. Mr. Speaker, let us give professional report. When you want to do report both sides of the eye. Report all over. Don't report half Yunkela, you go around. Report full for Yunkela, full for C4C, Honorable Emasi Lamina. Report full for me, report full for the leader. And all other members, they are all important. We are only here because they say so. We are only here because of their support. So if you report halfway, you refuse to report for the other members. The paramount chiefs are here. These are credible people. So if you want to give balanced reports, so it can reflect the shades of this House. As I said, conglomerate of representation. Let us have balanced report from our members of Parliament. But thank you all for what you are doing. Thank you for your objectivity. That's where we can always support members of the 4th Estate. And I will say thanks to HE, the President, for putting this fine thing together. For also have a budget that we anticipate to be proper, budget that we are outlined to fight the COVID and what you have done, and credit to the COVID team, because we have today read by the leader, by the Deputy Chief Whip, said he highlighted the achievement, the pronouncement made by CDC, giving us that courage to move on as a nation. When you can be small, but you can never be small in your action. A small nation can do big things. That's what we have done in COVID-19. We are rated 4 African countries, one of which we are among. Here you can travel, and the health risk is very low due to COVID-19. So I want to say thank you. Special thanks to my colleague on the other side, Honorable Chairman Majuba, who have been fighting in the political arena for a very, very long time, both at Frabi College and National. We will continue to collaborate, but I respect their views. Those who have criticized us on this budget, thank you very much. It's only by critics we can develop this nation. We cannot say yes, yes, yes. It's a destructive element. Let us allow people to criticize us. Let us have the courage and be thick-skinned to allow critics to criticize us. Thank you very much for criticizing us. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for supporting staff, for being here with us till the start of the debate. Thank you all. May the Lord bless us all. Thank you.